I want to bring up
what
TJ Hockenson said on Bussin' with the Boys. All right, let's get to that. He talked about getting traded away from Detroit, and he had some interesting comments. One, I don't know which order these clips are in, but one of them is going to be him discussing how he kind of found out and what was going on at the time, because they were 1-6 when he was traded, then they went 8-2, which was kind of funny if you think about it. We'll get into that afterwards. And then the other thing was whether or not he's bitter that the Lions just turned into this great team without him, and now they're contenders. So let's get to the first clip. Here's TJ.
Also, shout out Bussin' with the Boys. Great.
Shout out Will Compton, Taylor Lewan, man. They're crushing. But here's the clip.
The moment where you got traded.
Yeah.
How was that for you? Were you bitter at first?
No, I wouldn't say so. I mean, like there was a lot of articles coming out because we were, I think, 1-6 at the time. Like,
so articles of you being like on the trading block?
Yeah.
Because was that your contract year? Were you coming up to the end of your contract?
Yeah, like
year?
I was in my 4th year at the time. And so like I kind of like understood, hey, either they're going to want to keep me here or they're going to want to get rid of me and try to get some draft capital. And so like I was having a really good year at the time with like not, I wasn't getting the ball a ton, but like being able to create separation, and when I did get the ball, I'd make the most of it, and yeah, I think the last game I had like 3 targets, 3 catches, and like 90 yards or something like that, because we played Miami, and it was like I understood that they were kind of starting to get to that point, and you have conversations, you see like what's going on, and you see the articles coming out, and you just have conversations with the guys like, oh, like what's going on, and everyone's like, you're not leaving, you're not going anywhere,
right.
But they don't know, because it's really solely up to the GM, and so at that point, I got a call on Tuesday and was like, hey, you're getting traded to the Vikings, and appreciate it and have a good one. And I was like, all right, cool, sounds good.
Were you excited? Bummed?
Yeah. No, I was excited. It was a fresh start for me.
Well, he
not
is
a Dan Campbell guy.
Yeah, and and by the way, I watched the entire clip. We have one more clip, but there's things that aren't in the in these clips. He mentioned like, oh yeah, I was playing well, and and I'm not trying to take shots at him as a human being, because he was pretty mature throughout the entire thing. But like, Laporta, I think is in a different part of his career where he's a rookie. Now he's going to a second year where he's a lot more like, okay, I'm still finding my own in this league. He's pretty humble. He's okay with if there's a game where he doesn't get the ball as much. Like Hawk made it like pretty much a point. Like, yeah, I wasn't getting the ball as much, and that's where the Lions were. They were 1-6. You're not going to pay Hawk. I mean, they gave him $17 million per year. It's absolutely ridiculous. Like he's overpaid, and he's a really good tight end. I'm not even going to do that either. I'm trying to be realistic. He's a good tight end, really good actually. But it's crazy how Brad traded him away. I think got Sam Laporta, who arguably is better, as a rookie. It's wild.
How do you think that feels? Like TJ Hockenson, he saw the guy before him and George Kittle get drafted better than him. The guy that was drafted literally to replace him and Sam Laporta out of the same college better than him. And now you're stuck in Minnesota with Sam Darnold and J.J. McCarthy because you want to become the highest paid tight end in a league with Travis Kelce and George Kittle. He got exactly what he deserved. He's getting paid, but you can see on his face, like that man is going through it as far as his body taking a toll on him. Kirby Joseph, and I'm not saying that Kirby's a dirty player, because I think when you're that size, you got to go low on players, but Kirby messed him up this year with his knee. Like, Hawk, cooked. He's going to be cooked here pretty soon.
I do think, though, like with Hawk, and I don't know if people like, first of all, I made it pretty clear for a while, like Sam Laporta is the second or third best tight end in the NFL. Like it's George Kittle, Travis Kelce, and Sam Laporta. That's the tier 1 in my opinion. And I think TJ Hawkinson's like right below that. Like I think TJ Hawkinson's a really good tight end, and I don't hate him for what he said. And this is the thing with Stafford. Like when I look at a situation like that, like he's been in a different regime now with Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell, his second regime. It wasn't good with Matt Patricia, and then you go 3-13-1. You're trying to figure something out, and I know the culture is changing, and you could feel that. And then you start 1-6, and your contract's coming up, and that there's conversations of being traded. So like a guy in Hawk's position, and any human, any of us, if we were in that position, we would have been like probably the same thing. Like, man, like obviously they don't want me here and they don't want to pay me. So like, you know, and we're 1-6 right now. We won 3 games last year. In a 2-year span, he's won 4 games in Detroit. So he's sitting there like, these guys are acting like they don't want me. He's putting numbers up. He's a good tight end in the NFL. And that's kind of the way it was. But like, I think that's part of the business of the NFL. And Brad Holmes knows that. And that was why he traded him. So like, I don't have any ill will towards TJ Hockenson at all. Like I don't, like, outside of the money, how much he got paid and we were going to have to pay him. That would have been like, if we paid him, I would not have liked him because we would have paid him $17 million. So that would, like, I'm kind of happier that we traded him, and I have no ill will towards him. And no one should. Like, he's a top 5 tight end in the NFL. I don't think anyone can disagree with that. So like, that is what it is. We ended up getting the better tight end out of it anyways, and it ended up working out. Now going forward, like that, like I did watch the beginning of this interview and they were talking about the injury, and they never even mentioned once like a bad hit or anything with Kirby. So all the Vikings fans and everyone that kind of went through all of that saying it was a bad hit, like I don't think they mentioned it because NFL players sometimes know like that does happen. So it is tough. Like he's coming that injury, and they did bring up a point on it. Like the injury was in like week 16 or week 15 or whatever. So like it's going to be tough for him to get back for the season. Like that's the only tough part about it. But I don't know if you guys took like ill will out of that, but I really personally I didn't.
I will say I did. It's nothing that he said on the interview or what he's done in Minnesota, but I did like find it just just bewildering that he wanted to be paid the highest tight end in football when you're on the Detroit Lions and you aren't even the highest paid or the best tight end in football. Like at that time, he wasn't even the top. He's a better tight end in Minnesota than what he is in Detroit. Like I think he's levels better in Minnesota
for sure. I just think like when you're in that position, it's just you're asking to like typically guys at top 5 of their position are always going to ask to reset the market. Like that's just how it works. Like and you might not always
be that guy that like he wasn't even top 5 in my opinion.
The trajectory though, you're probably like, hey, this guy, he's going to be pretty good. So like your agent should be doing his job. Like if your agent isn't like a TJ Hockenson agent wasn't asking for that, then I would question his agent because like he should be. So that's why I would rather trade him.
I think it worked out for both sides. I mean, he got paid. Lions were in a different part of their rebuild, so I think it made the most sense. Like it's not even anything personal with TJ. I just think, you know, this team was getting younger. They didn't want to give a bunch of money to a tight end. They had guys they had to pay, and he was probably one of the last guys that you look at and you're like, okay, he's a part of the future. Like he was in his 4th year at the time. Like, you know, 5th year option. He wants to get paid. And you look at it right now, like Sam Laporta, what he gave you this year, like 800 plus yards, productive right away as a rookie tight end, which is unbelievable. And you use that pick you got from TJ Hockenson to draft him. His cap hit this year, guys, going into 2024, 2025. Is $2.1 million. So let's just say $2 million. TJ Hawkinson's cap hit this year, $14 million. So $2 million, $14 million. He's getting paid 7 times less. 7 times less what TJ Hawkinson's getting paid. And you're getting, look at the value you're getting out of Sam Laporta. I mean, it's unbelievable. And it takes balls, by the way, real quick, to trade a player in your division. That takes balls, especially
that
him.
Type of player, a top 5.
Like, and he even said it in the interview. Like he was like, I was shocked it would be in the division, but hey, it worked out for both sides. I want to play this real quick. His thoughts on the Lions afterwards, 8-2, and their contenders, and kind of what he had to say. So let's hear the clip here.
The Lions, and they haven't won a division in like the last 30 years until this past year. And then you leave, and now they're having that crazy success. Is there a part of you that's kind of like bitter towards that success?
I mean, you know, obviously they're still in division, so you like want to beat them and you want to win the division as much as you can. But you personally, but I mean, not crazy, but like I mean, you see it and you're like, well, what's going on? You know, and you talk to people and they're just like, you know, like that I played with, and they're just like, it just started clicking, like it was nothing.
Got rid of you and everything just came into place.
No shit. Well, I mean, you think
good
about
culture
it, like,
guys in there.
The first, like I was only there for 6 games when Coach Ben got moved up to OC, like head OC. So like it was a learning curve for everybody. Like it's not, that's one of those places too. Like the terminology is a lot different. Like Ben makes it complicated so it's easy, you know, like if that makes sense. Like, you know, each way is a different term. Like, so if you're on the right side, it'd be like I don't know. They'd be one term, and if you're going to the left, same play, it'd be a different term. So like you can still do all that at the line, but it was a learning curve for a lot of guys because that's not what you do, you know. And they'd be code names, so it'd be like lobster and whatever, you know. And so that was a learning curve for everybody, and so everybody was trying to figure it out and get used to it. And there was a lot of hiccups throughout that first 7 games, and then we all started kind of getting it after like week 5 and starting to kind of figure it out. And then, you know, now they've gotten it to click, and Ben's, I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that Ben's like a huge part of that.
Yeah, it's got to be
the playbook.
That's
in the playbook.
Lobster.
And he complimented Ben at the end there and said Ben's a big part of what's going on in Detroit. And I don't know, this isn't like confirmed or anything, but at least in my opinion, I think trading away TJ kind of took like a it's not that they, because he's a good player, but it's like you get that pressure off of you of having to like, you have to feed him. Like the offense is more like, you know, Brock Wright, Shane Zylstra, you know, guys that kind of stepped up into that tight end role they were kind of sharing it. And Brock had a big play against the Jets which they ended up winning the game. Like I think it was hard. It was just, I don't know how to describe it, but the team, like he said, they just kind of clicked when he left. Like, I don't think I'm not going to go as far to say like they're better. You know, TJ was the one holding them back, but I can see what he's saying. I can see it was his first year as OC with Ben Johnson.
I think it definitely allowed players, especially like Amon-Ra St. Brown, to find their identities, because a lot, like to your point, they're trying to run the offense through TJ because he's your best player, but that's not really the way the offense is supposed to be ran. So I think TJ I think he found his identity truly when he went into Minnesota and he found a scheme that fit him better. And same thing with the Lions offense. They were able to find their identity. And to your point, it wasn't TJ holding them back, but TJ now leaving and giving other players ways to just specifically run Ben Johnson's scheme. Just do the X's and O's part of it instead of doing the TJ Hockenson part of it. I think that really opened up things for the offense and Jared Goff too to understand the playbook.
Yeah, I do think there's a part of it, like TJ said, to where it did take some time, and once you get a certain amount of games in, then you start figuring it out, and then maybe the TJ kind of departure opened up, like you guys said, a door for some other guys to be able to kind of step in, and the pressure gets taken off, and then they start kind of finding that success. I'm happy to hear that he wasn't like bitter or anything. Like, it was just like that. It's good for them. Like, you know, like you are in a division. It's a weird situation because he is in the division. So like, it makes it a little like, I'm sure if he went to an AFC team, maybe that conversation, that question would have been answered a little different, where he'd be like, oh, I'm happy for those guys. You know, it sounds like he still has relationships with some of those guys, but like the offense, I couldn't imagine being 1-6 getting traded and then them do it like the Detroit Lions going 8-2, and then the next year doing what they do and go win the division, or you know, kind of taking that step. Like, that would be for him. Excuse me. He was kind of like, he was pretty big time in Detroit for a while, and I'm sure he thought it was his first home in the NFL. So it's probably a little bittersweet where he's like, man, like, I'm sure he would have loved to win a division here in Detroit. So he, as much as he probably didn't admit it because he's on the Vikings now, I'm sure in the back of his head, he's like, I wish I would have been able to do that.
I feel like that'd be like what it would, I would imagine that's what it feels like to have like your ex-girlfriend date your friend. And then you're like, I'm happy for them. Like they're successful. They're doing their own thing. But it's just like, what the hell? How am I supposed to interact here? Like, just fucking awkward.
Yeah, and you got to play them twice a year, that former team. I mean, and then they're going to – it's weird because when he got traded to Minnesota, he said they were 6-1 at the time. And now they're in a rebuild. Like, isn't that wild?
How got to his playoff game.
It like altered. Like, Vikings were here, Lions were here, and now it's like, whoop.
I kind of feel bad a little bit for him, but I don't, because we're out here winning divisions now.
He's getting paid.
Yeah.
The money.
He got it. I'm happy that he's getting paid.
It's going to be
the winning. Imagine like you get to Minnesota, they're going to the playoffs, and then here comes Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley, that was your one chance at a playoff win.
Yeah, that is wild to think about. I mean, he wasn't Brad Holmes' guy. You know, Bob Quinn drafted him.
So you guys don't like TJ Hockenson? I got a feeling that some people just don't like him. I'm a TJ, like, I liked TJ when he was here. I'm a TJ fan. Obviously he's in Minnesota.
Thought he was very talented, but never able to show it. I think the best game we saw to TJ Hockenson was literally his first game in the NFL against Arizona. And he had
the Seahawks game before he got traded. He had
Do you
like
feel like that was a
like a buck 50
situational type thing though, like the situation he's in with
I
Patricia
don't
and
because
then a new
and
regime?
obviously situation's gonna affect everybody, but tight end is a position where like even like if you're a bad team, like I still think you can succeed as a tight end because it's so much easier to get you the ball to compare to a wide receiver on the outside, especially if you have a good running game like play action and stuff like that. Like TJ, especially because of the hype coming out of him as a blocker. I said it once, but I don't think he really found his identity as a player in Detroit. I think Sam Laporta by week 4 found his identity in the NFL and knows what he's good at and what he's not.
How many top 5 tight ends in the NFL though are on bad teams? 0 of them. They're all on.
I mean,
good teams.
George Kittle was a top 5 in the NFL. He had Nick Mullins throwing him the ball.
I guess so, yeah. But like to me, like Sam Laporta, like again, Sam Laporta's tier 1 to me, but he came into like a situation where they just finished 8-2. Ben Johnson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jared Goff. He came into. I've said this last 2 years for guys get drafted to Detroit. Every player, I'm really big at players getting drafted in positions that are like good teams. Any player that's been drafted to Detroit the last 2 years, I'm a very big proponent of like the Kirbys and them. There's a part of them, their success coming into the situation of the Detroit Lions and the culture that's been built.